Dr. Mark Changizi here through Science Moment. Today I'm going to talk about some kinds of general differences between the left and the right, especially the far left and the far right, and even the woke left and the woke right. And I've talked about certain generalizations, sort of conspiracy theory differences, where the sort of far left concerns conspiracy theories about what does good in the world. It can only be certain kinds of well-intentioned government that explains the good in the world, and people are generally bad, whereas the far or woke right is more conspiracy theory driven in terms of evil. When there's evil in the world, it's typically due to some top-down control. And so you end up with conspiracy theories on both sides, but they're kind of opposing. Now there's another kind of opposition that I want to talk about concerning human nature. And these are the kinds of things that I think about in a lot of my earlier books. And left and right, as they get more extreme, are opposite poles of the human nature debate. Both of these poles are wrong. I have my own view that I'm going to explain now about what human nature even is. So let's walk through this. So there are two traditional poles about what human nature is, and each, in my research and books, I've argued that they're wrong. Both are what I call homocentric or human-centric, and that each believes that humans are fundamentally biologically different than the other animals. The far or woke left tends to believe that humans, unlike the rest of the animal world, are disproportionately plastic. Only humans are blank slates, and that's why we have language, writing, and mountains of other capabilities no other animal has. And the far woke right, that is the far/woke right, one or the other, tends to believe that humans, unlike the rest of the world, have been given, by natural selection, but usually by God, specific instincts and engineered specializations that make us so different and so capable beyond other animals. Now, in my view, and in my work, I've argued that both are false. We are just animals. We are qualitatively no different. We're not more plastic. Contra the left, we are not more plastic. There's no special powers, unlike what the right tends to think. There are these special, unique instincts, let's say, capabilities that we have. No, there's none of that either. Homocentrism of either variety, saying that there's something special about we humans, is wrong. In fact, I would analogize that to the antiquated geocentric view of the natural world. This is sort of explaining humanity, humankind, as if the biological world goes around humans, as if everything goes around us. Instead, the right framework I would call is zoocentrism. This is akin to heliocentrism. Humans are just one animal among the millions, revolving around the biological world with no privileged position within it. All right, well, then this leaves us with a tricky question, because we are different, right? How then do we end up so qualitatively different than the rest of the animal world? With all these powers like language and the arts and cars and cooking and supercomputers in our pockets and so on. We get these powers, I've argued in my research, in books like Vision Revolution and Harnessed, How Language and Music Mimic Nature and Transformed Ape to Man, in my sort of hybrid novel, Human 3.0. We get these powers because cultural evolution itself evolved to design engineered artifacts that fit our brilliant, fixed instincts. So speech culturally evolved to sound like solid object events. So back up, that is, we never evolved to have language, to have spoken language, but instead, language culturally evolved over time to sound like what our ears, our auditory systems, are already good at processing, namely the sounds of objects amongst solid objects, which the world is filled with all these solid objects. And we never evolved to read, so instead, writing culturally evolved over time to look like visual scenes, because our object recognition visual brains are built to recognize visual scenes. Letters, in fact, look like nature. They look like the contour conglomerations that happen in nature. It is a discovery of mine, seminal discovery from 2006. I discuss these issues in my books, Vision Revolution and Harnessed, and On the Origin of Art, and, as I mentioned, Human 3.0. The far/woke extremes of left and right get human nature wrong. And so how can they possibly get politics right? They can't and they don't. The far left's belief that we're infinitely plastic is invariably paired with varieties of socialism, or more generally, collectivism, that demands that people acquire arbitrary new natures consistent with the desired political vision. Only democides and crimes against humanity tend to flow from this, as the population cannot help but fail to be the non-humans they would need to be in order for the ingenious scheme to work. And the far right fails to appreciate that the very powers they often view as intrinsically human aren't per se human biologically at all. Our human 1.0 biological selves don't have those powers at all, like language and music and the arts and so on. What we take to be human today, what the far right often takes God to have bestowed upon us, actually comes via the massively complex processes of memes colliding, mating, intersecting, combining into ever new constructions designed to do ever more powerful things for our brains and bodies. And that requires openness to cultural change and respect for the new and potentially uncomfortable. Instead, the far right tends to believe the current state, or often some recent, more pure socio-political condition, is the one our divinely given powers were for. No, we're human 2.0s, and that itself is ever-changing as we are constantly re-engineering our own powers, 2.1, 2.2, etc. And the far right also tends to fall into collectivism of a different kind, one designed to preserve the pure conditions they falsely believe we were designed for. We're not extra plastic. Culture needs to evolve to fit us rather than the other way around. So no to the woke or far left. And our brilliant specialized powers aren't static and God-given. Those powers are themselves consequences of the messy and impure. So no to the far woke right. To embrace zoocentrism is to embrace freedom, decentralization, and openness to ever newer ideas. Our true human nature requires classical liberalism. And that was your science moment. And if you haven't gotten a copy of my new book, Motorcycle Mind, get a copy today. And you get copies of, and get that at Barnes & Noble. It has not appeared on the American Amazon yet, unless you're just interested in the ebook. It's been slow to populate, although it's at the Amazons all over the world. Get your copy of Motorcycle Mind, the physical copy, at Barnes & Noble, and get all my other books at Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and I will place them up here magically on the screen. Go get them.